What is going on, everybody? AHS Rules back again with another video, and we're here for a milestone video. This is the 100th Ring of Honor TV review of ROH on Honor Club. For 100 straight weeks, I've sat in front of my camera and talked about the happenings of ROH on Honor Club, and I have been glad to do it. You could say that it was even my honor. I'm glad to have done it. We're at episode 100, and I plan on continuing to do it, and we're going to celebrate this grandiose occasion by talking about what happened on the 100th episode of Ring of Honor on Honor Club. Such a big deal that I'm using a new pen. I've been talking about for weeks that I've been needing to get some new ones, and they came in the mail after last week's review, so this is the first time I got to use it on my notebook. But very similar to last week's episode, where the opening match is a good match, the main event is a good match, and everything in between is mainly squash matches. We do have some extra things that happened during the course of this episode that, you know, it's kind of to celebrate the 100th episode. So it's not the biggest deal. It's a big deal to me because, you know, I've been here for I've talked about every single one of these episodes, and, you know, I'm glad to have done it, which I keep repeating that. So we open this episode off with Ring of Honor legend and former Ring of Honor World Champion, multiple-time tag team champion Mark Briscoe introducing us to this episode in hopes that there are hundreds more episodes. And our first matchup is for the television championship, a matchup that's been weeks in the making. Komander versus QT Marshall. QT Marshall outlasted Komander in the Proving Ground and was supposed to have this match on last week's episode and then delayed it. That way it would be on this 100th episode. Now, this matchup was definitely a different matchup from their previous one because the last one went to a time limit draw. That way that QT, which I don't really know what Proving Grounds, if it goes to the time limit, I would imagine the non-champion, it technically is a win for them. So it went to the time limit and QT won that, but this match goes to a time limit or you get a count out, the championship doesn't change hands, so QT was trying to get the win off of a pin or a submission. So before the match does start, QT does a flip off of the top rope, which, you know, wasn't really expected, but it does not stop the QT sucks chants that were going on. Komondor has a speed advantage to start the match off. QT lands a pop-up forearm and follows this up with a moonsault for a 2 count. Komondor lands a pop-up moonsault for a 2 count, and then Komondor lands, this was impressive, a pop-up moonsault to the outside. QT teases hitting a diamond cutter and then eventually does, but it only gets a 2 count. Then QT tries to bring the championship belt into the ring, but Alex Abrahantes stops that from happening. This sets Komondor up to hit a code red, but it only gets a 2 count. Then the two are on the outside on the stage, where Abrahantes tries to interfere again when QT's trying to throw him off the stage. And then, you know, QT's like, you know what, I'm tired of Alex. And he punches him right in the gut, which is what happened the last time that these two competed. But Komondor did not have to worry about the time limit expiring during this one because he hits him with 2 Canadian destroyers and his rope walk shooting star press and retains his television championship. After the match, Lee Johnson appears on the ramp to applaud Komondor's effort. So I will give credit. I will say that I've been giving a lot of slack to QT Marshall. I'm like, I don't know why they feel the need to give him a big TV title match. I will also say that this will probably be in the thumbnail of the video because ROH made a nice graphic for it. So I was like, you know, let me showcase that. So this was a good match. They definitely could have found a better matchup to put on this show and make the big match of the episode. But for what we got, it was interesting, and we already know what is next for Komondor, and it will be announced a little bit later on in the review. As our next matchup was Marty Bell versus Layla Gray. Marty starts to get an advantage after knocking Layla off of the top rope. Gray's comeback starts up after a series of clotheslines, and then she turns a neckbreaker into a dragon sleeper and wins the matchup. And we'll know what's next for Layla Gray. And you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and spoil it. So next week's episode, two big TV title related matchups, as Komander will face Lee Johnson in the Proving Ground, and Layla Gray issue a challenge that was answered by the women's television champion Red Velvet. So that is a TV title match. Komander Lee Johnson is a Proving Ground bout, so we'll see what happens in those. As next, we get some tag team action, this being the Outrunners versus Rosario Grillo and John Cruz. Cruz and Floyd start the match off with a series of wrist locks, but Floyd gets very upset after Cruz breaks his glasses that he was wearing. The Outrunners hit a double team elbow drop after their handshake that they do, and hit the Total Recall to win the matchup. Then, probably out of these 100 episodes, the MVP of ROH, just mainly due to the consistency that she put in and elevating this show. And Athena, there's a lot of words to describe her, but still our forever women's champion appears. And she said, did y'all expect the 100th episode of her show to not have her? And she knows that she is not here because she is still finishing business on the Athena World Tour, but will be back soon to take over. So at least we got an appearance by Athena. And like I said, probably the MVP of these 100 episodes. Several women's title matches and Proving Ground bouts, and she competed like almost the first year, like competed like every freaking week, and just a star. So I thank you, Athena. As our next matchup is the Beast Mortos versus Lord Crew. Fast-paced early from both, mainly including leapfrogs, drop kicks, and pinfall attempts. Crew lands a series of chops, but a headbutt and series of headbutts by Mortos gets Mortos back into the match, and then he is able to win off of a blue Thunder Bomb. But it wasn't really as much of a spin to it. It's kind of like a pile driver a little bit, but always happy to see the Beast Mortos win. As now, we have our retro match of the week. I like that every week there's a theme to these matches, and that most of the time they're not just random ass matches. Like last week, it was the first episode of the first match on the first episode of ROH on Honor Club to preview episode 100. The week before that, we had a Sumi Sakai match because that weekend she was celebrating her retirement. And speaking of celebrating a retirement, this week it was announced that Ring of Honor legend and wrestling legend Christopher Daniels has announced his retirement after his match with Hangman Adam Page last weekend. So this week's retro match of the week, throwback match of the week. I'm pretty sure they always say throwback. I always say retro. It's just one of those things. But it is Christopher Daniels and Matt Sydal versus Shingo and Sema, a tag team title match from the International Challenge, December 22nd, 2006. I believe that this show was either the day before Final Battle or a week before Final Battle. I don't know, because obviously Final Battle would have been like in the course of the next week, which I think it was the day before, but I probably should have fact checked that and given y'all way too much detail. Also, they could have chose a lot of matches for Christopher Daniels because he was in Ring of Honor from the very beginning and was consistently throughout his career. And even on these 100 episodes of ROH on Honor Club, teaming with Matt Sydal, who is his partner in this matchup I'm about to talk about, but giving a thank you to Christopher Daniels and his contributions to, I almost said another word, but contributions to wrestling. It is very weird that ever since I've watched wrestling that Christopher Daniels has been an in-ring competitor, and now that changes, but it is what it is. But Daniels and Sydal versus Shingo and Sema, tag team title match. Daniels and Shingo start the match off. Shingo keeps the Fallen Angel grounded early. The crowd cheers once Sema tags in, with Daniels and himself exchanging a series of arm drags. The two sides spend some time performing double team maneuvers after tags are made. Shingo targets Sydal's back after missing a cannonball. Sydal kicks out of an ace crusher by Sema, and then Sydal is finally able to make a tag back to Daniels back in. The match goes to the outside where Sydal hits a moonsault onto everyone. Sema suplexes Sydal while having Daniels applied in a leg lock. CIMA's Michinoku driver only gets a 2 count, and then Daniels hits a Death Valley driver on CIMA, with CIMA recovering enough to hit a frog splash soon after, while he had a Koji clutch applied onto Shingo. And then CIMA accidentally super kicks Shingo, who then is hit with a best moonsault ever and shooting Seidel press, with the champions retaining in this matchup. So, thank you, CD, and thank you for a good throwback match of the week. So our next matchup is Lady Frost versus Taya Valkyrie. When Frost starts to get an advantage, Diana Perazzo on the outside helps Taya out. Frost is able to land most of Frost's maneuvers that she lands is mainly drop kicks, and then the 2 exchange palm strikes and clotheslines, with Frost hitting her corner cartwheel cannonball, but Taya is able to hit a Blue Thunder Bomb and the Shania Payne foot stomp to win the matchup. So now we have an interesting development that I didn't really look that much into. But Jack Jameson is backstage, and he's looking to form a new group, and there's 3 individuals standing together, all shirtless and somewhat oiled up, which that is, they talk about that in detail. It's not that's me saying that, but Cole Carter, Griff Garrison, and Preston Vance, and that he's trying to start a fraternity, and he wants to invite the 3 of them, and he can offer them chicks and parties, and they don't really want to deal with any of this because they already get chicks and parties, but they're willing to listen to his offer, and while he is not listening to them and not talking to them, they are willing to kick his ass. So I will admit, when I initially saw these 3 together, and I have this thought process a lot when they compete on ROH, but it's just like, if someone was to ask me, describe what this person does, what is this person's gimmick per se? These 3 guys, I couldn't really say that. But now that they're like kind of put together, they kind of have something going, because they've all been in like factions, and the factions were tag teams, and now they're like long gone, and they haven't really recovered from it to do anything. So putting them together kind of makes an interesting note of it. So maybe this does turn into something, maybe it doesn't. I also don't. The interesting development that, I didn't really look into is why Jack Jameson's looking to form a new group, where the hell the Iron Savages are, because Boulder competed the last 2 weeks without the other guys with him, and Bronson, like I said, wasn't there. So interesting development that we should get an update next week, because they're wanting to listen to his offer and get back to him next week. As our next matchup is extremely quick, the Gates of Agony versus Jay, Lucas, and Terry Aki. Lucas and Toa Leona start the match off, but it is a one-sided beatdown by Toa Leona, and Bishop Khan, with them winning off the Gates of Agony, which I don't know how many people have their names be their finisher. The Gates of Agony obviously come to mind first, and there's probably others, but it kind of makes it weird for Nuts, because I normally say the Gates of Agony win off the Gates of Agony, so I said it anyways. But before we get to our main event, we have one last video message, and it is from our current Ring of Honor World Champion, Chris Jericho, who talks about his favorite moments in ROH, and that there are so many that you can make a compilation and playlist out of them. What is hilarious about this is that most of Chris Jericho's ROH run was not on these 100th episodes of Honor Club. He appeared 3 times. So, would be a very short playlist, and they would freaking involve Matt Cardona, so it's not even that great of a playlist, but let's get this world title off of Jericho. I've been asked for this for a long time. It feels extremely, extremely forgotten. And I think that, this is just me speculating. I think we would have got something with Jericho and Bandito based off what happened at Final Battle. But with Bandito getting injured, it kind of just, everything got screwed up there. But let's just get the title off Jericho. So we do get our main event matchup, first-time matchup of Katsuryori Shibata versus Shane Taylor. The two start off with chops and forearms, but Shibata struggles after this, after Shane Taylor Promotions interferes, and the match goes to the outside. Once back of the ring, we get some more chops and forearms with Shibata. Big hit with the Marcus Garvey driver, but it only gets a 2 count. Then Shibata starts to get it going after he applies his sleeper hold that he is able to set up his penalty kick up with and wins the matchup, but is not able to celebrate for long as Shane Taylor Promotions attacks him with Daniel Garcia, Adam Cole, Roderick Strong, and Kyle O'Reilly coming out to make the save and running Shane Taylor Promotions off, ending off this 100th episode of ROH on Honor Club. So it's nice, and Ian Riccaboni is like really putting over. It's like, look at the ring. All of these guys are former champions in ROH, because Shibata was a former Pure Champion. Daniel Garcia, former Pure Champion. The Undisputed Kingdom. Adam held the world title 3 times. Tag champion. Hilariously, a tag champion with freaking MJF. And TV champion. Kyle and Roddy were both world champions, which Kyle had an extremely short world title run, and tag champions, and then Roddy had 2 great TV title reigns. So it's a nice way to wrap up this 100th episode of ROH and kind of celebrating the history of ROH, even though the Undisputed Kingdom didn't really compete this much on the Honor Club era. Let's get them on the show a lot more. That way I could talk about them. But before we ended the episode off with a match announcement for this weekend's Collision. Konosuke Takeshita versus Katsuryori Shibata for the AEW International Championship. Takeshita's trying to he has already built in an early case for Wrestler of the Year in 2025. So, that is it for this 100th episode of ROH on Honor Club. Like I said, main event match was good. The opening match was good. Everything in the middle was very much just squash matches. I don't really like that formula, but at least with this week, we had sprinkled in a little bit of history of ROH to celebrate this 100th episode. So again, I appreciate y'all for watching these, and I enjoy doing these reviews. And I kind of feel we're now in the triple digits, so I plan on to continue doing these. But as always, I hope y'all stay safe. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next one, because I'm out for now. Goodbye.